So basically, ever since I pivoted this channel to start talking about, our cattle operation, specifically these 3 steers we are feeding out for direct-to-consumer beef, I've been utilizing this bagged feed here. And the reason I chose to go with bagged feed is it's just a little bit more convenient with where we are on this particular setup. And there's only 3 steers. I'm trying to make it, realistic. All that being said, this bagged feed is a little bit more expensive. Getting to the point where we're actually going to start adding in a little bit of protein, dried distiller grains. And that might be different than what you are used to doing. And that's okay, but this is what we're trying this time. It's my first time doing direct consumer beef, so it's what we're trying. And it's because in our area, we can source DDG. If in your area you can't, it might not make sense, but it's relatively affordable around here, and so we're going to do that. The only problem, and why we haven't gone that route a little bit sooner, is we don't have a place to put it necessarily, like a hopper bin. I was looking at some of those, and it seemed like I could find some, but a lot of them would be super expensive. They'd be like close to $1,000 for even just some of the hopper bins that are rusted on the bottom. I just thought to myself, why would I spend that much if something's already starting to rust out? So I might as well get something nicer. I looked at some of those little hopper bins that are kind of on wheels. They're kind of newer, they're becoming more popular, and I thought that might be a good route. But then I got to thinking, and I talked with some people, and I was like, I have these 3 little bins, if you can see back there, and they're not all being used. And I can actually go inside of them. We'll actually go inside of them here later on this video. And maybe we can store the dry distiller grains in there, and I can actually scoop it out by hand. All right, so as you can see, if we can look back to some of those other videos, they're putting on some weight. They're looking pretty good. And they're really enjoying this bagged feed. And it's been doing well. And, I think sometimes those bagged feeds, I think it has some molasses on it. So, they enjoy it. It makes them, they can adapt to grain a little bit quicker, if they've never ate grain in the past. So I think there are some benefits to going that route. But, and we're not actually getting rid of it completely. We're actually just going to be adding the dry distiller grain to it. But let's get over there and check out these bins. Okay, so we're at the first bin, and I noticed, I don't know if you guys can see in there, but there is some old corn on the bottom yet that never got scooped out of there. And I just noticed this other one. There's some holes. I don't know if you can see that. Some holes rusted out on the bottom of this one. It seems like it kind of rotted in there and stuff. So I could go ahead and clean that completely out, and I probably will eventually anyway. But let's go ahead and take a look at the other one and see if it is a little bit more ready to go. So number 1 with this bin is there's no door, so that's a good start. But as I look in here, it is actually pretty clean for the most part. This will probably echo a little bit, but if you look around the base, you can see for the most part, there's not really any major holes in the bottom, at least nothing where like mice and stuff can get in. I'm sure they'll try to get themselves in here anyway, but for the most part, it's actually pretty clean in here. We will have to clean up the floor a little bit, but in reality, we'll open that top up there. You can see we'll open that top up there, and we'll actually probably drop the grain down, probably land somewhere in this vicinity. Hopefully we can keep it piling up that way. It'll probably realistically go wherever it wants. And then we can just hand scoop it into a 5-gallon bucket. And like I mentioned in the other videos, we're actually going to continue to use that other grain. So we'll actually mix it with the distillers. So we're not going to use a ton of distillers all at once right away. We're going to work it sort of into the ration and go from there. But fixing this door, that will be probably priority number 1, as well as getting that cleaned out. All right, so we just got the bin scooped and vacuumed out. So here's what she looks like. So, it's not perfect, but it is much cleaner than it was. You can see it is not by any means, spot clean, but It is much better than it was, and it is probably ready for some grain to go on it. So we will probably get that ordered. We'll get it in here, and then we'll start scooping that out, by hand and filling that in some 5-gallon buckets and feeding that with the bagged feed. So that's the plan moving forward. Now in the rest of this video, I think I'm going to break down the numbers of how it actually compares, of how much I'm saving by doing it this route rather than just sticking with that same bagged feed throughout the whole process. And so you just can kind of get a look. So we're going to break down exactly how much this is saving us to go this distiller's route, because as you can see, there's a little bit of extra work that's going into us getting that little bin ready for the DDG. So why did I make this decision? Well, the DDG, hopefully you can see this, is going to cost, let's say, roughly $350 when it's all said and done. That's a pretty rough but fairly accurate estimate. Now, I have it figured that if I went straight NutriBeef, I would have to buy 45 more bags. Okay, so 45 more bags of NutriBeef if I didn't go the DDG route. So 45 more bags, it cost me $15.99 a bag, and that comes out to I have it written down somewhere. It looks like $720 if I went this route. Well, that minus the $350 averages about $370 that I'm saving here. $370. If you divide that by 3, it's about $123 that we are saving per steer. So $123 per steer doesn't seem like much, but if you were going to scale this up in the future, and that's going to really add up. $370 is a good chunk of money, and especially when we're talking a regular cow-calf operation, if they're making $50 to $100, we're talking about saving potentially double to almost 3 times that per animal just by going this DDG route. So it's pretty good savings, and I think it's going to pay off. Of course, these are all estimates, and that's the thing, you don't know until you try it. But I do know what the price of the NutriBeef is. I do know what the price of the DDG is. I don't know how the steers are going to respond, but I do believe it will work out, which is why I'm ultimately choosing to make this decision. With that being said, guys, I appreciate y'all for watching. I appreciate the subscribe. Share with 10 friends. We'll see you in the next one. And as always, God bless.